Hey guys, tonight we're slipping into worn leather boots, hoisting a rucksack over one shoulder, and trudging through muddy fields beneath the shadow of a Napoleonic eagle. Your musket weighs a ton, your uniform itches like mad, and you've got a cannonball-sized blister forming under your heel. But right now, none of that matters. What does? Lunch. You probably won't survive this. Not just because of the bullets or dysentery, but because your lunch options are tragic. So, before you get comfortable, take a moment to like the video and subscribe, but only if you genuinely enjoy what I do here. And hey, drop your location and local time in the comments. I love seeing where and when you all tune in from. Now, dim the lights, maybe turn on a fan for that soft background hum, and let's ease into tonight's journey together. You crouch beside your unit's campfire, poking at the coals with a stick. Your belly grumbles. It's not hunger exactly. It's more like quiet despair. You reach into your canvas haversack, fingers brushing past the scratchy linen of your extra socks, the glint of your eating knife, and finally, the real treasure: bread. Or something bread-shaped anyway. What you've got is a round, hard loaf, officially called pain de munition. It's made from a mix of rye and barley flour, baked days ago in a Central Army bakery, then marched hundreds of miles to you. You knock it against your musket. It makes a hollow thunk. Could be used as a weapon in a pinch. That's lunch. To soften it, you tear off a chunk and dip it in whatever liquid you can find. If you're lucky, it's a slosh of weak wine or broth. If not, it's ditch water you filtered through a sock. Hydration and flavor, soldier style. Tucked beside the bread is a lump of salt pork wrapped in waxed cloth. It's fatty, rubbery, and salty enough to raise your blood pressure just by sniffing it. You slice a bit off with your knife and chew like a cow working through cud. Not glamorous, but hey, calories. Standard issue rations include about 750 grams of bread and 250 grams of meat per day. That's assuming supply lines haven't collapsed or your quartermaster isn't trading food for favors. Spoiler alert, they probably are. Historians still argue whether the French Army's logistical network was brilliant or a total disaster barely held together with twine and good intentions. You eye your neighbor's bowl enviously. He's dunking stale bread into something soup-like. Lucky guy probably swiped an onion or two from a village along the march. Foraging isn't officially allowed, but who's going to stop you when the officers are eating roasted pheasant on silverware? One of the guys swears by crumbling dried bread into his soup de campagne, a concoction of whatever he can steal, trade, or beg into a pot. It smells like leeks, salt, and faint desperation. But compared to plain hardtack, it's basically gourmet. You remember a story from the older veterans. Something about a clever guy who once boiled his boot leather just to feel like he was eating stew. Not recommended, unless you like your teeth stuck together with tar. The fire crackles. You hold your crust close to the flames, trying to toast it slightly, then burn your fingers when it catches. One of the guys laughs, then bites down on his own bread like it's a challenge from the gods. You chew in silence, thinking how a slice of fresh baguette would feel in your mouth. It's basically erotic at this point. A few soldiers carry small tin pots or mess kits, if they're lucky. Others use hollowed gourds or even carved-out turnips as makeshift bowls. You've got a dented spoon, a battered tin cup, and the eternal hope that someday, somehow, this pork might taste like something other than pork. Here's a weird one. Some units swear by roasted chickpeas as a battlefield snack. Crunchy, salty, and, according to one unusually chatty grenadier, they keep the bowels regular. Never underestimate digestive consistency in 1805. Mid-meal, you reach into a cloth pouch and pull out a small pinch of salt. It's not a regulation issue, but you bribed a camp follower with a spare pair of bootlaces last week. That salt transforms your greasy pork into something almost edible. Almost. You smile grimly. This is culinary victory. You're not technically supposed to trade gear for food. Those are army resources, but everyone does it. A button here, a buckle there. One guy traded half his sleeping mat for a boiled carrot once. No regrets. Behind you, a drummer boy is gnawing on a hunk of cheese so sharp it could file a musket barrel. Cheese is rare, but sometimes the supply wagons surprise you. It's hard, crumbly, and smells like someone's armpit. But again, flavor is flavor. As you finish your feast, you roll the bread remnants into a cloth and tuck them away for later. Never waste a crumb. You never know when the next full ration will arrive, or when a battle will make mealtime impossible. There's an old saying among the troops: eat when you can, sleep when you can, fight when you must. And yes, you are dreaming of actual food. Roast chicken, plump grapes, maybe even something absurd like coquille Saint-Jacques. But for now, it's bread, pork, and the occasional onion if fate smiles your way. The camp quiets as fires die down and boots stop crunching over frost-hardened grass. You lie back on your bedroll, belly not exactly full, but not empty either. There's something comforting about routine, about knowing what to expect, even if it's tough, bland, and wrapped in old cloth. Tomorrow's march will start before sunrise. But for now, you close your eyes, the flavor of salt still on your tongue, and drift off dreaming not of victory, but of soft bread that doesn't fight back. You wake up to the dull clang of a tin cup and the smell of smoke, burning wool. Someone's tent probably caught fire again. Typical. You groan, stretch, and feel your joints pop like musket triggers. But before the march begins, there's just enough time to think about breakfast, or what passes for it. You pull out your canteen. It sloshes reassuringly. Not water. Wine. Because in Napoleon's army, water is suspect, and wine is practically medicine. Well, weak red wine diluted with water. Think of it like war-grade sangria, minus the fruit and joy. Your squad mate raises an eyebrow as you take a sip, and nods approvingly. Keeps the belly calm, he says, and the lice confused. You don't ask. Napoleonic soldiers were often issued wine or eau de vie, a kind of clear brandy that's more flammable than flavorful. Historians still argue whether this constant low-level buzz helped morale or simply turned half the army into sleepwalking drunks. You lean toward the latter when your corporal starts singing La Marseillaise at 7 a.m., off-key and missing a boot. Still, booze does more than dull pain. It makes bad food taste tolerable. You glance over at a private scraping something out of a mess tin. It's a thick gray mush. Some call it soldier's pâté. It's made of mashed beans, a handful of barley, and a dash of mystery. But if you swirl a splash of wine into it, boom, cuisine. Rations alone don't cut it, though. You've learned the real magic comes from what you find or trade. On yesterday's march, you passed a shattered farmhouse, and one lucky fellow found a wheel of moldy cheese stashed behind a wall panel. That night, cheese soup. Everyone dipped bread in it like a Parisian at a sidewalk cafe, minus the cafe and plus the threat of musket fire. Scavenging is a risky business. You're technically supposed to leave civilian property alone, but the line between foraging and looting gets blurry when your stomach sounds like a cannon. Some guys go full raccoon mode, digging through abandoned kitchens, chasing down chickens, even robbing scarecrows of leftover corn. One genius in your regiment carries a tiny spice pouch, just salt and a few dried herbs. He guards it like a sacred relic, sprinkling it into whatever stew or slop he can conjure. The result? Shockingly edible. The rest of you pretend not to notice how good it smells, though you would trade your bayonet just to lick the spoon. Another guy, old, grizzled, missing 2 fingers, claims he can cook anything over an open fire. And he does. One time, he boiled wild nettles with pork fat and said it tasted like springtime and war crimes. You believed him. The guy once made a sauce out of crushed ants and vinegar. You tried it. It wasn't terrible. Worrying, yes, but not terrible. Let's not forget bribes. A spare bullet might score you an apple from a local. A needle and thread? That's worth a bit of flour or a chunk of dried sausage. You've seen men trade letters from home for onions. Actual onions. Love is eternal, but flavor is now. When the army gets lucky, or the officers decide to be generous, you might get soup maigre, a thin broth with vegetables and maybe a trace of meat. Don't expect much. You once fished a pebble out of yours and weren't sure if it was flavoring or just gravel. Either way, you sucked on it for a while. Texture helps. During rare stretches of good supply, your unit might even get biscuits. Not the soft, buttery kind from modern bakeries. These are chalky, square, and older than your commander's boots. But they're less prone to mold than bread, and can be dunked into anything from soup to wine to puddle water. Just chew carefully. And speaking of water, there's always the gamble. Drink from the stream, risk dysentery. Don't drink, risk death. So, the savvy among you keep a bit of charred wood in a pouch. Makeshift water purification. Just enough to make you feel like you tried. One fringe tradition among some battalions involves singeing your meat with black powder before cooking. It gives the pork or beef a smoky kick and apparently keeps bugs away. Tastes a bit like fire and regret, but it's a vibe. There are always rumors of weird delicacies. One regiment swore by fried frog legs when camped near marshes. Another claimed they roasted rats low and slow, like fine lamb. You never confirmed either story, but one night you saw something skewered on a bayonet that definitely wasn't chicken. Then there's the tobacco trick. You're out of food, but still got a plug of tobacco? Chew it slowly. Dulls the hunger. Makes your head spin, sure, but the dizziness feels suspiciously like a full stomach if you squint. You munch quietly on a crust you've saved from yesterday. The edges are blackened, the inside just soft enough to break down with wine. You close your eyes and imagine butter. Just butter. Nothing more. Historians say French soldiers were obsessed with butter, and honestly, who can blame them? Your officer strolls by, nose in the air, probably carrying a hidden ham in his satchel. You grumble. It's a well-known fact among enlisted men that the higher the rank, the fatter the chicken. He smiles at you. You smile back. Someday, you'll steal that ham. As the march resumes, you shove your food gear into your sack. Maybe tonight, if you're lucky, you'll catch a rabbit or win a bet that lands you a boiled potato. You dream of garlic, of olives, of food that tastes like memories. The path ahead is steep and dusty. Your boots drag, but your imagination runs wild. Because no matter how rough the journey or bland the food, there's always something to look forward to. A campfire, a dented tin cup, a stolen carrot, or maybe just a good joke shared over a terrible meal. Because that's the secret, really. You eat what you can, laugh when possible, and pretend it's all part of some grand plan. And in the quiet moments between marches and musket volleys, you dare to believe that someday someone will write about this, about what you ate and why it mattered. And maybe, just maybe, someone listening in the dark right now will remember the soldier who made soup from weeds and meat from hope. Now, let the images fade like the dying glow of a campfire. The muddy boots, the dented mess tins, the smoky scent of boiled pork. They blur gently into memory. You're no longer crouched by a fire in Belgium or Italy, nor trudging through alpine snow. You're here, wrapped in the hush of your own quiet space, far from cannon fire, far from hunger. Let your breath slow. Imagine the weight of your pack slipping from your shoulders. Your hands are clean. Your belly is full. The bread is fresh. The wine is sweet. No need to listen for orders now. No officers, no drums. Just the soft rhythm of your breath and the flicker of imagined firelight dancing on your eyelids. You're safe. You've made it back. So rest now, soldier. Tomorrow's another journey. But tonight, the war can wait.